Fremantle Port is set to come to a head this Friday, with DP World threatening to dock workers' pay if they take part in industrial action. DP World Executive Vice President of Oceania, Nikolai, knows he wants the government to intervene in the pay dispute.
We have suffered from industrial action now for several months, and the indications are that the actions taken are going to escalate going forward. So I think it's not like Friday is a big milestone in terms of disruption. That has been going on. The question is, I guess, will it now further escalate? We want to project how serious we feel this is and how critical it is for us to get to an agreement, but also for the broader community to have this solved. So what we have said is that from Friday onwards, part of the industrial action, the industrial action where you go in and say, well, I want to do this job, but not that job. I want to work this vessel, but I don't want to work that vessel. That we have said, look, we're not going to accept that anymore. We respect that you don't want to work and you're staying at home, but you cannot come in and cherry pick jobs. And frankly, as you can imagine, it's also part of the dispute that for the union, ideally, you want to get paid while you don't work. And that's what we're saying, that you cannot do no longer to that technicality. Clearly, there is a desire on everyone's side to get to an agreement, right? Everyone is hurting from this situation. Our colleagues are getting, lower salaries. Our customers are suffering. The company, everyone is pretty much in suffering from this. So there is a real desire to get something done. But as always, these things, if it is this draconian process where they say, look, these are the only terms that we will agree to, well then, yes, you can sit down and talk, but if no one is willing to make compromises, well then, yeah, things stall, unfortunately. When we have these disputes, it's not just about the MUA and DP World. Clearly the flow-on effect to the broader society and Australia at large, it is very unique, the impact that we have. I think someone estimated that just the existing industrial action sort of cost the Australian economy about $85 million per week. So this is critical. And we just, what we are saying is that for when we cannot agree and we have this industrial action, there is a broader picture. And I think we are asking the government to go in and say, look, we're looking at this from the side of Australia, and we are not just urging you to solve it. When you have proven not to be able to solve it, we will go in and play an active part in mediating this.
That's Nikolai Knows from DP World speaking to the ABC earlier this morning. We put in a request for the Maritime Union this morning. We've been told they're in 3 days of negotiations with DP World, so no one is available. We have Paul Zalai. He's the director of the Freight and Trade Alliance. Paul, this dispute, it's been going on since October. What impact have we already seen for freight?
It's been devastating, Christian, both from an import and export perspective. I heard Nikolai there quoting $84 million a week. I think that's actually extremely conservative. So importers are facing massive delays, shipping lines are bypassing ports, traders are going to have to do domestic movements to get the cargo back to the original place. Exporters are missing their vessels with the bypassing. Shipping lines don't want to go into ports, so they're congested. So they move on, and exporters are left scratching their head. How do they get their freight to overseas markets?
Us as consumers, why should we care?
Well, for starters, you're going to have delays. So we had some data from DP World as of last Thursday. There was about 51,000 containers trapped in their container terminals around the country. For your listeners in WA, the situation's not as bad. Only about 1,800 containers were held up there. But the bigger issue here, which Nikolai sort of was talking about, this is an ongoing problem. We've got similar enterprise agreements will take place with the other stevedores around the country around the end of 2025 and into 2026. This could be the entree for a whole series of ongoing and protracted industrial action. Importers will have to adopt different models where they can't rely on just-in-time inventories. They're going to have to bring stock in well in advance, try and find some available warehousing, which is at a premium at the moment, and they'll be paying top dollars for it. And those costs will pass on to consumers. We will see higher prices on the shelf. We're hearing all the mantra from the government and other commentators about cost of living. Well, if the government is serious about it, then for starters, they need to give up predictability and open up the gateways to international trade.
Paul, this has been going on since October. What's changed this week that's kind of bringing it to a head?
Look, the protected industrial action, I've been calling it, it's almost like drip torture. So it's not meant to have crippling effects. It's meant to be more of an inconvenience and an annoyance to get the employer to the table. I think just because it's been going on for so long, we've had the compounding impacts of it, and that's where it's led to this massive congestion, leaving the shipping lines really with no option but to have a look at which ports that they call in, and when they do come in, whether they take exports or not. And I'm not even critical of the shipping lines. They have to meet global schedules. So if Australia is holding them up, they're going to give us minimum service and move on and deal with the rest of the world. We've got to also bear in mind, we do not have one Australian flag vessel here servicing the international trade. We are 100% reliant on foreign-owned shipping lines out of Europe and Asia. And while they have traditionally served us very well, they do so on a commercial basis. Australia's national interest is very much secondary. So if we've got a third world facility and operation operating out of Australia, they may have a very close look at it and work out whether they even service us or not.
Paul, DP World has asked the government to intervene in this dispute. What's your opinion? Do you think the government should get involved?
Unfortunately, I think they have to get involved, or the Fair Work Commissioner that has to do something. The parties are just at a stalemate. They've been in negotiations, formal negotiations, since October, but I understand talks even started as early as March last year. They're both digging in their heels, and I'm not union bashing. I'm not saying the unions are right or wrong, or the employers right or wrong, but they're not getting any progress. And meanwhile, while they have the dispute, it's the importers and exporters and the community of Australia that are suffering. So we definitely need an independent referee in there just to sort this out.
Paul, thank you for joining us this morning. We'll keep our eyes peeled to see if there is industrial action this Friday.
Okay, thanks again, Christian.
That's Paul Zalai. He's the director of the Freight and Trade Alliance. You're with Chris.